This is Professor Kim Nelson with the Jewelry Design Department at the Fashion Institute of Technology. I'm going to be doing another tutorial for JD138, basic CAD modeling for Rhino. This is drawing a round brilliant gemstone as per our demonstration in class. Just updating my workspace a little bit. Okay. As you'll recall, I keep my Object Snaps panel over here to the side. The default for it is usually down in here. So when you pop that up, you can move it to wherever you'd like. In my case, just for the purposes of screen real estate, I've been in the habit for years of keeping it to the side there. Alright, so I'm going to draw a 10mm round brilliant stone. To begin, we'll start with a circle, center, radius. Center of circle is 0, enter. And we want to make sure it says diameter. We do not want radius, we want diameter. Type in 10 for 10mm, hit enter. The table of a round brilliant cut stone is 53% of its diameter, of its girdle diameter. This is our girdle line. Okay, so to create that, we're going to use a scale command. We want it to make a copy. Origin point, it's still asking for the origin. Type in 0. Type in 0.53. And then we're going to hit escape to end the command, because if we hit enter again, we'll simply keep creating additional copies of this. Need to create a piece of geometry to use here so that we can offset and create a midline. I'm going to go back to the curve tab. I'm going to pick circle diameter. I'm going to use quad snap. Notice I right-clicked, you didn't see my mouse, but I right-clicked quad, which deselected anything previous and left only quad selected. I'm going to change that now to send or center, doing the same process. Right-clicking, which will deselect quad. If I did not right-click, it would have simply added it. Okay. Offset. Through point. Remember, if we don't do through point, it's going to go either 1, which is Rhino's default, or the last distance we used. If we hit through point, or T enter, we can rubber band, we can pick our distance. I'm going to touch the outside of this circle to activate a center snap. Remember, Rhino needs you to touch the circumference of a circle so it can calculate its center. And I have my 3 reference curves. I'm going to divide these curves. So to divide, now the division only places points along the curve. It doesn't actually affect the geometry of the curve, it just adds extra geometry on top. It adds point objects that you can use for reference and to snap to, and that's what we're looking to do. So, transform tab, point button, hit the triangle for the pop out, right click on divide curve by number of segments. Take a look at your seams, make sure they are all the same. We would like them on a quadrant, so make sure that they are on a quadrant, which is either 12, 3, 6, or 9. I like that it's on a quadrant. All 3 seams are in the same place, so hit enter. Number of segments will be 16. Type in 16 and hit enter. And now we have our indicated points. Next, we're going to get a polyline command. So, grabbing polyline here, point object snap on the object snap panel. And we're going to draw our girdle first by clicking on each point as we go around. going to draw the table of our stone. We want to have a flat at 12, 3, 6, and 9. So I'm going to start from the point to the one side, one point to the side of center, and then skipping every other point, draw the table of the stone. Next, I'm going to draw the star facets. So, starting here, catching every other point on the midline. And the last thing I want to draw is the upper girdle facet. So I'll draw a polyline to here. Now every other polyline we've drawn, it's ended automatically when we close the curve, but we're not going to close the curve here. It's going to remain open. So to end the command, we just hit enter. And then a single straight line segment to split the upper girdle facet. Now we can delete the three circles. Mine already remain selected, so I'll just hit the delete key. I'm going to delete all the points. So I'll go to the select menu, select points, click, and enter, or delete. I need to make 8 of these, so I'm going to use our polar array command. So going to the transform tab, finding the array polar button, polar array, click. Wants the center for the array, which will be 0. Wants the number of items, which will be 8. After you enter the 8, simply hit enter twice, the first time to accept the 360 degrees, and the second time to accept. I remember in class I mentioned Rhino 5 is the first edition that's required that second enter command, but that's fine. So you will, again, to do the array, you will transform array polar. Center of array is 0. Number of items is 8. Enter, enter, enter. Okay? And we've drawn the top view of our round stone. Now, I'm going to need to draw the pavilion of the stone, something we did not do in class. Okay? So, to draw the pavilion, I'm going to go directly above it, circle center radius. Using grid snap, I just turned it on by hitting S enter. I could also have snapped it here. I'm going to snap one grid line above the original drawing. I'm going to turn grid snap back off so that it doesn't constrain my marker so strongly. I want this to also be 10 millimeters because this is just the girdle from another perspective. And I need to be able to divide this distance in half. Okay? So I need to create geometry again, reference geometry. I'll do a circle diameter again, just to give us the practice. I need quad snap. I'll just left click it. I'll leave quad and point active at the same time for a minute. And then to get to this point, there are 2 points I could use, 2 pieces of geometry I could use. I could use center, to grab a hold of here, and that would pull the snap into the center. Or I can use grid snap, which will also pull the marker to that grid intersection, which would be the same place. Turning grid snap back off. Going to offset my curve, through point option, T enter. Now I will use send. I'll go ahead and leave 3 options open. But I have to be more careful now because I can hit quad very easily. Okay? Make sure it says CEN there in the little window and click. I can delete that reference curve. Alright? Now I'm going to divide these curves in much the same way. Okay? So, transform menu, Actually, I already have it out. It's right here. Right click, select curves to divide, enter. I like that seam. They're lined up and they're both on a quadrant, 3 o'clock quadrant. Enter numbers of segment 16 again, and we're good. I don't need to draw this again because I have it right here. So I'm going to go back to the Transform tab. I'm going to pick Copy. Now there are two kinds of copying Rhino. One is where you copy the geometry or the object outside of Rhino onto a Windows clipboard and then paste it back in. That's a typical Windows copy and paste. But there's also a copy transform within Rhino where the geometry never leaves the Rhino environment. Okay? It's not on the Windows clipboard, it's inside of Rhino. We'll use that one. Hit copy. It wants a copy from. We need a place that will reference and get it right where we want it. There are several options. I could grab the center here. It's a polygon, it's a closed curve. Rhino still finds its center. And take it to the center here. So that could be from, that could be to. I could use end and point snap. This could be from. This could be to. Okay? Or this could be from. This could be to. Alright? So there are several pieces of geometry I can use here. I could use grid snap. This could be from. This could be to. Okay? I'll go ahead and use the end and point. Okay? Just like the copy, the scale command with copy, you can enter out of that, but you could also escape to get out of the command. So we have our girdle line. I don't need the circle anymore. Alright? Okay. So the kinds of curves you have on the pavilion of your stone. On the pavilion of your stone, you have a culet, which is the center. And on a real diamond, that's usually a very small copy of the table. We're just going to use a point. Okay? So you have the culet. Okay? You have the mains, which are the equivalent of these bezel facets on the crown, on the underside of the stone on the pavilion. And you have lower girdle facets, which duplicate what you see here on the underside of the stone. Okay? I am going to draw one of each of these and use polar array to generate the rest. So polyline command again. I'm going to start right here because the points of the mains and the points of the bezel facets touch at the girdle. So this is the point for that bezel facet. This will be the point at the girdle for the main. Here, here. I need to snap to the center here. So I can either use center snap or grid. I'll use grid, S enter to activate grid, S enter to deactivate grid, point and point. Okay? So that's my main facet. My main facet. Now I want to create my, actually I'll go ahead and array this. Transform, polar array, center of the array is right here at the center. You can use the end snap, we could use grid snap, we could use center snap. I'll go ahead and use end snap. Number of items, 8. Enter, enter. Okay? So I have that. Now I need to make the line that divides the two lower girdle facets. So, curve tab, simple line. And this line, this dividing line, splitting line, lines up exactly with the same line on the upper girdle facets. Polar array, center, here, 8 items, again. Going to delete the points, so select tab, select points, delete. And now you have your round brilliant stone. That finishes this portion of the tutorial. I am going to continue now and draw an oval stone. So, to give myself room, I will move the round brilliant stone off to one side. And I will commence drawing my oval. I want to draw an oval stone that is 10 by 12 millimeters. So curve tools, ellipse from center, click. Ellipse center is at 0. I don't want grid snap on it. It's really constraining my marker, so turn it off. It wants end of first axis. Remember, in the ellipse from center, that's always half of your total dimension. It's the radius. So since I want this to be 10, I will type in 5. I'll hold the shift key down. Remember, that turns on ortho. In fact, when I hold the shift key, you can see ortho go into boldface right here. Ortho locks the marker into 90-degree angles. Notice how it leaves the cursor once I do that. I'm going to click. You'll see that that dot has been constrained to 5. So no matter how far out I pull, it won't matter. The marker actually shows how wide it will be. It's being constrained to 5 millimeters because that's what I typed in the command. So I'll left click. It wants the end of the second axis. I want that to be 12, so half of that, the radius of that is 6. I won't need to hold down the shift key anymore. Once I type in 6 and enter, it'll complete the oval. Not quite, I have to still click because apparently it believes I could go in a separate direction. I really can't. So anyway, pull up and click. And there you have your ellipse. Proportions are the same, so we're going to go transform, scale, origin point 0. We want copy yes, so make sure this says copy yes. If yours says copy no, like that, click on it until it says copy yes. We want 53%. It's already set to that because it remembers the last dimension, but pretending yours doesn't, I'll type in 0.53. Enter. Remember, I have to escape out in the scale with the copy option. I want you to notice something. Notice how there's asymmetry here. It's narrower here than it is there. Okay? We can't have that. So, we're going to do an offset curve. Through point, T enter. And what I'm going to do is now use my eye, and I'm going to pull that ellipse until it looks even, so that it's a little too narrow this way, a little too tall this way, but that those differences look balanced. There's as much side to side as there is top to bottom. And click. And that will be my actual table. Okay? I'm going to draw a circle diameter again using quad snap. Actually, I had end snap because it just so happens that the end of each of these curves is here. But quad is also good. I'm going to do an offset curve again. I'm going to pick that from right-clicking within the command line. That gives me my list of recent commands. Offset curve, T-enter for through point option, right-click center snap, so I know I get a nice clean center snap, and click. Delete that. Grab my curves, divide curve by length, not by length, by number of segments, so right-click. Check the seam, make sure they're all together in a straight line and that they're on a quadrant, which they are. They're on the 9 o'clock quadrant. Hit enter. Number of segments, type in 16, unless 16 is already in the field as your last selected number. And done. Okay? Now, when you draw, let's go ahead and draw the basics first. Point snap, right-clicked, catching every single point. I will draw my girdle. Catching every single point, I will draw my table. But in this case, you never want the flat on an oval stone at your quadrants. You never want a flat at 12, 3, 6, or 9 like we did on the round. We want a point there. Okay, I'm going to draw my star facets. That's the reason you have the table start at a point, is you need to have this fork in the star facets, because at the point of a pair, a point of an oval, point of a marquee is always the bezel facet. I need to draw my upper girdle facets, but I can't use polar array because this isn't a circle. So I'm going to start here, my polyline, go to here, 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 and here, and then hit escape or enter. I'm going to take my straight line and draw it from here to here, and from here to here. Okay. I'm going to grab these objects together and I'm going to group them. Grouping keeps things together for purposes of selection. It does not join them. They are not one piece of geometry. They're simply grouped together as an organizational or selection tool. You can find group on the edit menu under groups, group, but we're going to use in our class the shortcut, which is Control G. So Control G, and you'll see it said group. Now when I touch any one of these, I select all of them. I'm going to mirror. Now mirroring, you can find it where is right? I never use it on the up on here. Here it is, mirror. You can use it off of the key, off of the tab. I prefer the shortcut we set up in class, which is F2. Start of mirror plane is 0. And remember that water line between the trees. We want it, our reflection, to go straight up and down, so the water goes from side to side. Grab both of these, repeat the command, which you can do by just hitting enter. Center of mirror is 0. Enter. And this time we want the water and the reflection to go from side to side, the trees and their reflections to go from side to side, so the water line would be vertical. We can now delete our reference curves. We can delete our points. You'll notice I left the outside curve and the girdle alone. That's because we're going to need them for the bottom view anyway. So once again, I'm going to copy within Rhino, transform, copy. I'll use grid snap. So 0 will work for my first point. I'm going to need to come up a little higher for this one because the stone is larger. Or I can go to the side, but I'll have to go over here. So I'll go up. Keep it consistent. Hold down grid snap, turn on grid snap, S enter, and click. And then enter to get out of the command. Okay. So coming up into here, I need to have a copy or an offset of this that comes in halfway to the center. So I'll create my reference geometry. This time I'll use a straight line, just for variety. Turn off grid snap, use end snap, and then I can use center or grid. I'll use center this time. Touch that outside edge so it can calculate the center. And I have it. Now I could offset either one of these curves. I can offset this curve, divide it, and use that to make my reference line in the middle of the pavilion. But I can also just offset the polyline, which is going to be more efficient. offset, T enter for through point, and I need a mid snap to grab the middle of that line. I'll right click it so I get a nice clean mid snap. There. Okay. So I have that duplicated. I can delete the outside circle. I can delete that reference line. Patterning is the same. So where there is a bezel facet, there has to be a main facet. Okay. I'm going to start with the main on the side, but it doesn't really matter. I can start with any one of them. So we'll just go here. I'll start from the bottom actually. Here, here, and then I need to get into that center point. I'll use grid snap for that. S enter, click, S enter to deactivate, and then enter to end the command. Right? Going to draw another one, but this time I'm going to start at the end, catch the end, skip one of these to come over to here, skip one of these to come over to here, end. Okay? And I'm going to go from here to here to there and enter to stop. I'm going to group these together, Control G. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to put the divisions in the mains. Align here, align here. Select all of these. I'm using the click and hold shift method. I could also have used a window. Group those together, and then I'll do a mirror. So F2 shortcut, end snap for my center. Hold down the shift key so that I pull that water line, that reflection plane, mirror plane, straight horizontal. Keep the shift key depressed, and I can just touch this and it'll add it to the selection. Repeat the command by hitting enter. Grab that end point in the center for my center of mirror, for my start of mirror plane, and then pull straight up and down with shift key held down, engaging ortho to mirror over to the side. Okay. Now I'm seeing something that I don't like. I don't know if you're seeing it or not, but it's excellent that it happened. When I did my offset curve, I assumed I could use this curve to come in here, but I'm getting some very strange asymmetry in here. So I'm going to introduce you to command in Rhino. I apologize, guys. Undo. Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. Okay. I'm going to need to pull this in, offset the circle, the ellipse, instead of that polyline. See if I can't get a better drawing. Through point option, mid. Divide my curve by 16. I don't need to draw a polyline. All I really needed were the points. Draw my, using end snap, draw my main. I need end point. Enter. Draw another main. And draw half of this main. Delete that line. Dividing lines on the lower girdle facets. Group, Control G. Go ahead and throw away that outer ellipse. Mirror. Mirror, using that end point or grid snap or center for the start of my mirror plane. This time pulling vertically so it mirrors horizontally. Get rid of this reference curve, and you'll see that's more symmetrical looking. That looks better. Select points, delete. Okay? So we got to do a little undo and redo action. Sorry about that. If I were going to present this, I'd actually select this drawing and move it up one grid. Use grid snap so that I have a more symmetrical presentation. And that's it. It's the end of this tutorial. If you ended right there, you missed one of the best parts. I told you that there was a way to cheat. I will show you that way now. I'm going to use the Windows copy command this time, so Control-C or Edit Copy. You'll see that's Control-C. So, select Control-C and then Control-V to paste. So I have a copy of this drawing right here. I'm going to move that using grid snap a couple of boxes over. I'm going to change the layer of it. To change the layer, I have a few options. Edit, Layers, Change Object Layer. That's one way. Go down to the Layers box here on the status bar. Click, pick the layer I want it to go to, right click, and change object layer. That works too. But for the purposes of our class, we're going to use our keyboard shortcut, which is Control-D, change layer. I'm going to put it on the red layer, just for variety. Okay? The main difference between the faceting pattern on the round and the oval is that on our round we have our point pointing straight up, and on our oval we need to have a cleft between two star facets pointing straight up. I'm going to do that by rotating, transform, rotate, center of rotation. Make sure it says copy equals no this time. No copy. Center of rotation, I'll use grid snap. I'll turn grid snap off so it's no longer going to be in my way. I'm going to use end snap because it wants to either type in an angle, which we don't know offhand in this case, or pick our first reference point. It's the typical Rhino first point, second point reference. So we'll pick the cleft between these two star facets as our first point. And then to get them to go straight up, we'll hold down Shift key, which engages the ortho. Remember, you can see it happening down here. So we'll engage ortho and pull straight up and then click. And that rotates our drawing upright. Okay? Going to do the same thing with this drawing we've done below. Control-C, Control-V, M-enter to move, grid snap, two boxes over, Control-D, change layer, rotate, 2D, grid snap or end to get to the center of that. We want the cleavage, in this case between the two mains. Click, hold down Shift key to lock ortho, pull straight up, and that will rotate that as well. Actually, I missed the layer color. I made it on the more of a brick red instead of a bright red. There we go. Okay. So we have top and bottom. We've made a copy of these two and rotated them slightly differently. Okay. Now, what I'm finding interesting is that I rotated this wrong. I actually need the point of a bezel facet going straight up. So I needed to do this again and grab a point of a main, pull straight up there. So it corresponds with this drawing down below. Now I need some way of indicating 12 millimeters. I'm going to use a circle. Circles are marvelous measuring tools. Circle center diameter, use grid snap to place it. Turn off grid snap so I'm free to move, and type in 12 millimeters. I'm going to do the same here. I just hit enter to repeat the command, end snap to find the middle, and it remembered the last dimension, so all I have to do is hit enter one more time, and I have 12 millimeters. I'm going to grab this drawing. We're going to use a scale command that we have yet to use, non-uniform scale. If you click the pop-out button on scale, pick the second to the last, non-uniform. This allows you to scale an object in each of the three different axes independently. So you need an origin point, like with every scale command. I'll use grid snap. I don't want to change the dimension in this direction. Okay? I want it to stay at 10 millimeters. So that's the x-axis scale. You don't have to know that that's what it's called. You can tell because it's the red line. We discussed that in class last week. You can also tell, but you can really tell because that's the direction the rubber band is going in the command. You just look at the rubber band and go, think, do I want to scale that direction? No. If you don't want to, make sure that this is 1. Because 1 in Rhino means 100%. It means no scale. So, also make sure copy no is selected, which is the default. So it says 1, I can just hit enter. Or I can type in a 1 and hit enter. This is the direction I want it to scale. So you either have to type in a scale percentage or pick your first reference point. Once again, the good old Rhino 1, 2. First reference, second reference, start, end. We're going to do that option. We're not going to type it in because we don't know. Okay? At least we're going to do that for this one. For this drawing, we'll do the pick the 2 points option. So I'm going to make sure I have end snap active, which I do. I need quad as well because I'm going to snap to the quadrant of this circle. So I want this point to reach that quadrant. Okay, the last one you really can't see because it's coming straight at you, that z-axis. We don't want to change that. So make sure it says 1. And if it does, hit enter. If it doesn't, type in 1 and hit enter. Okay, there's the top of the stone. Now for the bottom, select. We're going to use the same command, non-uniform scale. Origin point, we can use an end here because we have one. We want nothing here, so hit enter if it says 1. Type 1 and hit enter if it doesn't. In this direction, I can do the same procedure we did before. I can pick end and quad, but we have another choice. If you know the dimensions, Rhino will calculate the percentage for you. All you do is type in the equation. Type in the mathematical equation. So, in this case, I want 12 divided by 10. 12 is what I want it to be. 10 is what it is now. So if I type in 12 / 10 and hit enter, it will scale it that much for me. Z equals nothing, so we won't worry about it. At 1 or hit enter, or if it doesn't say 1, type in 1 and hit enter. And it scales that perfectly. Delete the 2 circles. Okay? And actually, I didn't know we had left this reference circle here. It's important to delete that. Okay? So, to check, I can move these using grid snap. And you will see there are subtle differences because scaling affects things slightly differently. But it's valid. Either one is okay. Either one is a nice drawing. Either one is accurate enough. Okay? So, that's the end of the tutorial. Thanks for watching.